Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Infinity Workforce Solutions Fast Forward webinar series, sponsored by Vertical Alliance Group. My name is Steve Kessler, and I'm going to be the host of the program this morning. We have a really good topic this morning: fleet accidents in today's litigious culture. I think those of us that have commercial fleets out on the road are fully aware of the problems and the nonstop lawsuits that we seem to run into. So we have a really good program set up for this morning. Why don't you all jump on the chat and just tell us who you are and where you're from, and maybe where you're calling in from and what your company. While you're doing that, I'm going to introduce a few folks. First of all, my co-host is Mark Ray. Those of you that have been on our webinars in the past, Mark's a regular on our program. He's a veteran transportation executive of about 35 years. So we're always glad to have you on the program. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Steve. We've got a great setup today. We're going to talk about loss control, risk management, and today it's much different than it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago. So we've got our friends from Shreveport, Louisiana. We're really looking forward to today's seminar.
Great. To introduce our panelists and our guests today, I'd first like you all to welcome Jeffrey LeBlanc. Jeffrey is Director of Loss Control Department at Querbes and Nelson Risk Management Firm in Shreveport, Louisiana. He's been there since 2010. Jeff received his Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Louisiana Tech University in 1992. His insurance career started in 94, working as a claims and accident specialist for 3 major insurance companies over a 15-year time span. Jeffrey has extensive background in property and casualty claims in both commercial and residential applications. Jeff is certified through the Board of Certified Safety Professionals and has attained his Associate Safety Professional, Certified Safety Professional, and Certified Instructional Trainer designations. Jeff has also received his Certified Safety and Health Official designation in construction and his Specialist in Safety and Health designations in general industry from the University of Texas at Arlington. Also, I'd like for y'all to welcome Jeff's guest. There is Luke Whetstone. Mr. Whetstone, and by the way, he's an associate at Cook, Yancey, and King and Galloway in Shreveport. Mr. Whetstone primarily represents and advises corporate and insurance clients, including energy and transportation companies, in civil litigation matters. His litigation experience includes jury and bench trials, as well as injunction hearings and administrative proceedings. He represents clients in a court on a variety of issues, including casualty and tort liability, labor and employment disputes, and contract disputes. So we have an excellent panel of folks joining us this morning. Welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you for that introduction, Steve and Mark. Luke and I are very excited to be here, talking about something that's really a hot button item with what my firm does, and we see it every day, and it's been evolving. As Steve said, I've got 15 years of claims adjuster experience. I came to work for Querbes and Nelson and started with the loss control department and safety. Been doing that since 2013. So I've seen a lot of things change, and the way this program evolved was Luke and I. I'm lucky to have Luke not only as a counterpart in business, but we're friends as well. And we were sitting around one evening and started talking about it, the knowledge that we've acquired over the years. And it seems like the auto claims have changed over the years. And so we started putting some stuff down on paper, and this is what turned out. So we're ready to jump on in. If you hit the next slide, please. So everybody, these are some pictures of, I'm in North Louisiana. If y'all are familiar with what Louisiana looks like, if you think about the boot, Shreveport's up in the top left-hand corner. We're about 30 miles east of Texas, and then we're about an hour south of Arkansas, where it's considered the Arklatex area. But these are the billboard attorneys. I'm not making fun of these guys or anything, but these are the guys. Everybody's got the billboard attorneys in their area. Mark just drove through Shreveport, heading to Vicksburg, and I said, man, count the billboard signs. And I drove down to Gulf Shores probably about a month or so ago, and from Ruston, which is right in the middle of the boot, to the state line, there were 34 billboard signs just heading east. And then I told Mark, I said, I'd be willing to bet that there's probably another 34 heading back the other way. And we were laughing beforehand about how many billboards there are. But if you look at these guys up in the top left-hand corner is Morris Bart. If y'all are in the Gulf, in the lower half, you know Morris Bart. He's the guy who kind of changed the game. When he came out of college, he said, I'm going to make the plaintiff, the personal injury game very corporate. And it's one call, that's all. That's his deal. And he's made a ton of money. You've got Jacqueline Scott, and it's kind of humorous. Luke and I laugh because she's got a video of her getting on a plane it's probably a $20 million jet. And jokingly, I said that airplane's probably never set foot in the Shreveport airport, you know. But it's just amazing what they've got. But anyway, these guys are the billboard guys, and everybody's got them. If you flip the next slide, please. So when they advertise on TV, this is what they show. I mean, these are bad accidents. I mean, they're wanting their clients to think that every automobile accident is like this. And next slide. And more likely, it's just one of these. And I'm watching the folks coming through the chat. We have people all over the place, from Texas and Ohio and Florida and the southern part of the United States. But most of the accidents that we deal with on a daily basis are the minor parking lots. You bumping somebody at a little fender bender, at a red light, or you're backing out and you back into somebody's parked car. That's probably 90% of what we deal with as far as from our agency side of things. It used to be a simple process, but it seems like now in the auto industry and the insurance world, it's gotten a lot more complex. There's two pictures over on the right. We'll talk about this one specifically. I'll call this the guy that I know, the gentleman that's driving the truck. His name is Colt. And Colt had a boo-boo, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that as we get further on down the line. It's turned into quite a little interesting claim for us. Slide, please. So whenever they do these advertisements by the plaintiff attorneys, they show the injuries. And granted, I'm not making light in any way, shape, or form. There are people that are hurt as a result of an automobile accident. But the parking lot accidents that was basically just a minor fender bender, they have a process. These plaintiff attorneys have a process to go through in order to make a claim against the insurance companies. And they have the medical bills, and they require surgery, and they have neck pain, and all these. The new thing is down on the bottom right hand is the traumatic brain injury. That's kind of the hot button right now. But it goes from a little minor hiccup of I'm sorry to next thing you know, they're needing $200,000 worth of surgery to repair a 5-mile-an-hour accident with $1,000 worth of damage to the vehicle. Next slide, please. So I went down a rabbit hole one evening, and I started looking to see what the advertising dollars were spent. And I don't know if we have people on this webinar from any of these states, but look at the amount of money and the amount of ads that are run. But if you've got the total amount plus the number of ads that are run in each state, that's an entirely large amount of money. And my response to Luke, we got to laughing about it when I sent it. I said, man, if they're spending that much money on advertising, they're making that much money. And it's all coming out of your insurance premiums, okay? Everybody wants to know, it seems like the hot button in our office is my auto rates keep going up. Auto rates keep going up. This is a direct link to why it's going up, because they've got to cover their costs, and then they get the collections, and you know, like I said, if they're spending it, they're making it. Next slide, please. Then I went down a deeper rabbit hole. This is just Louisiana. We're one of the most, I'm born and raised in Louisiana. I love my state. We're one of the most litigious states that out there, if not number one. Was that fair to say, Luke, as far as?
That's absolutely fair. It's highly litigious. I think it's, pardon me, but it's been considered a judicial hellhole by multiple companies and groups that track that kind of thing. It's absolutely incredibly litigious.
As business friendly as the politicians want to say that we are, sometimes it's a struggle because right now we're having some struggles with some of our insurance companies are pulling out because it is so litigious. But what's really interesting is it said, Q4 of 2020, there was 3 million advertisement for 237 million. And then the total gross domestic product for Somalia was 444 million. So that's just an eye-opening amount. I mean, would you agree with that, Steve and Mark?
Yes, and these numbers are 2020. I can assure you those numbers are trending up and to the right.
Yep. And then, top law firms, I mean, Dudley DeBosier, they are the official plaintiff or injury attorney for LSU football. That's their new thing. They're hanging that, and they're also, I think they're doing the Saints. And I'm like, how did we go from professional and college football to being the official injury attorney? And that's just the way the world's going. And I give them credit. They're master marketers because they know they can make the money, and they're master marketers. And they've got, at one point, Gordon McCarron, I heard the number out there that he was spending close to $500,000 a month just in billboard advertising. Yes. And that is crazy amount of money. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this. One of the things I like to ask my customer when I sit down with them, and even guys that are established and or new customers, are you a lucky company or are you a good company? And they kind of look at me, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you can be a great company and never ever have the big one. But statistically speaking, if you've got a fleet of vehicles, at some point you're going to have a pretty significant automobile accident, and you need to be prepared for that auto accident. Or have you just been lucky and you've never had it, and are you prepared for that scenario? You have to ask yourself that question. Next slide, please. All right, Luke and I sat down and laughed about this because I call these the truism of auto claims. If these plaintiff attorneys are spending that much money on advertising, we talked about that, they're making that much money on advertising. Working in the insurance industry for so many years, it's kind of a truism that their thought process is always, if you throw money at it, it's going to go away. Well, the problem is, yeah, that works, but there's a mentality that's been formed in society that if I can get in an automobile accident, I can make some money. And by throwing money and trying to make it go away, it's caused some challenges because these settlements keep getting larger and larger and larger. Across the board, and Luke can kind of add a little color to this, insurance companies don't generally like to take auto claims to trial in front of juries. Is that fair to say, Luke?
No, that's absolutely true. And it's gotten a lot worse, especially since COVID. We've seen COVID and then inflation have really started to skyrocket jury awards, even for minor claims. In this area alone, there was a recent $49 million verdict. I think there was another one north of 50 about a little under a year ago. It's really just kind of taken off. So insurance companies do not want to be in front of juries. They're scared of juries, and I understand that. But the problem is, as Jeff is mentioning, when you start throwing money at a problem, eventually it's going to cost more and more and more money to make that problem go away.
Sure. And then what some people don't know, like I'll go back to Gordon McKernan. He's a big attorney out of Baton Rouge that over the last, I'd say last 5 or 10 years, is that fair to say, you think? They figured out that, hey, we can make a lot of money on these large insurance claims. And so the private equity money that was out of New York State, they're like, look, we've got a large amount of assets. We're putting it in the stock market and investing in it, and they're making a return of, 7 to 12% on a good year kind of thing. Well, they've reached out to several, and I know this is happening in Dallas as well, some of the larger plaintiff attorneys, and they're saying, hey, we'll back you, because in order to take a claim to trial, minimum 6 figures, is that fair to say?
I'd agree with that. If you go through all of discovery, you take the depositions, you do the written discovery, motions, pretrial motions, dispositive motions, week-long trial, maybe some post-trial motions and briefs. Yeah, I think it's It's about, I usually quote between 75 at a low end and 6 figures.
Yeah, 6 figures. So for a law firm to front that money, that's huge on their capital. Well, so the private equity firms come in and say, hey, we'll front this money because we know that you're going to win this case. There's about an 80% chance you're going to get something out of the deal. And so they may take it and invest $100,000, but then they get an $800,000 judgment on it. Well, they just tripled, quadrupled, whatever the number may be after expenses, and they're making a killing on this. I know there's several in South Louisiana. Like I said, there's a big law firm out of Dallas that I know it is. There's one out of Longview. There's a couple of them out of Little Rock that I've heard that have been backed by private equity money. So if y'all aren't aware of that, that's what's driving a lot of this advertising, because it's a corporation. This is a corporate money-making process is what it is. And they figured it out. Next slide, please. All right, so this is really the nuts and bolts of what we've kind of put this thing together on. And here's the playbook. Everyone's hurt. No matter if you hit them going 5 miles an hour, you hit them going 50 miles an hour, everyone's hurt in an auto accident. Everybody needs an attorney. And people consistently get rich. It's attorney. If you like, I'm friends with attorneys on both the defense and the plaintiff side, and they've got lots of toys because they work real hard at their money and they make a decent living. Most of these plaintiff attorneys, like there's one down the street that we deal with all the time. I know him personally. He's got an agreement. Is that a fair statement? I have to watch what I say here. It's an agreement with a doctor that you need to get seen by a medical doctor. Let me hook you up with Dr. X. And Luke, you want to expound on how that typically works?
Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into what's coming later, but that's the biggest development that we've seen. I just want to loop back real quick to what Jeff is saying. The days of plaintiff lawyers being Wild West banditos is over. They are serious corporate actors, and they're trying to make money, and they do a good job of it. At least I will share that I interviewed with one. I saw someone say this Texas Hammer, exactly.
Yep.
I interviewed with one of the firms, I won't say which one, and they shared with me that they had just bought outright the marketing company that they had been using because they were making so much money, they brought them in-house to do just their work. And so what you have to understand is these people all go to conferences throughout the country and they learn the new strategies. And the most recent one is what Jeff has there on number 2. Juries don't like lawyers. Most people don't like lawyers, to be fair, so don't blame juries. But juries like doctors. So what plaintiff lawyers have done is they've found these doctors that I'm not besmirching anyone, but they have found doctors who are more agreeable to their proposed long-term plans of treatment. And so a jury is not going to give huge general damages because a lawyer asked, but a jury will give huge special damages, medical records, if a doctor says so. So that's kind of the trend that we've seen recently.
Like when I was doing claims adjusting here in Shreveport, there was one particular plaintiff attorney, and he would send every one of his clients to a certain chiropractor here in town. And it almost became a joke where when I get a letter of rep with him, and I became friends with the attorney, and I call him up and I said, okay, I bet you lunch that the doctor's bills are going to be between $2,500 and $2,900. And it's like, well, how do you know that, Jeff? I said, well, if you take the previous 10 folks that you sent to them and I hold the bills up to them, they're exactly the same and the reports read exactly the same, except for they changed the name on it. I don't believe in coincidences, but like I said, it became I buy you lunch, you buy me lunch. We were just trying to get through the process. And so there are certain agreements and arrangements that are out there, and they fill in the blanks of the lawsuits as well. And that's fair to say, a lawsuit, they're already pre-built, ready to go, and they all read the same. These plaintiff attorneys are throwing out ridiculous settlements requests, and they just want to see what happens. And Mark and Steve and I were talking about that. Where in Texas, it seems like they just demand policy limits. They don't even throw a demand out. They're just going to go for a policy limits and see what happens. And Luke's tact is to go, no, I need a demand. What number are we talking about? And kind of go from there. They'll file suit. They fill the names in. They're all pre-built. Now, what the new tact that we're seeing is, we received a lawsuit. It's sitting on my desk upstairs. probably 3-4 months ago, and there was 43 pages worth of discovery. And when I'm telling you, it is everything from the gas receipts at the pump to whether or not you put air in the tires on the truck to where was the guy working, 12 years ago. I mean, it's designed to overwhelm the defendants with a request for information. And then the attack with Steve had mentioned, or Mark had mentioned about the Raptor. They've got the Raptor, was the deposition, and then they've also got the
reptile theory.
Yeah, the reptile theory. And is that changing a little bit from the reptile to the Raptor? It kind of moves around a little bit.
It moves around a lot. But as I mentioned earlier, these plaintiff lawyers all go to the same seminars. They all learn the same thing. There are these, and this is not a joke, there are these special books on these strategies that you're not allowed to buy unless you're a plaintiff lawyer. You have to literally prove that you're a plaintiff lawyer in order to get one. But it's something as minor as, and I won't get too deep into it, for these depositions, they'll say to the deponent, which is usually a corporate rep, hey, safety is important, right? And of course you answer yes. Then they take it a step further. Okay, so safety is the most important thing. And everybody wants to give a good answer. And so they say yes. And then, again, I won't get too deep into it, but it just spirals from safety is the most important thing to you have done everything wrong. You did not take safety as the highest priority. Thus, this person is injured. Thus, pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, that can be overcome, but it requires a lot of work, both from the attorney side and from the insurance side.
And then the final thing there is go to trial or settle. I had a conversation with an attorney out of South Louisiana, and liability was clear cut. I've worked lots of claims with this guy, and he helps us out a lot of workers' comp, a lot of auto claims. And I was talking to John, and he said that liability was clear cut on this deal. We had a pretty good amount of insurance. We had one primary, we had 10, and we had 5. So we had 16 sitting out there total as far as coverage. And it was a really bad claim. And we knew that we were going to write policy limits. There was no doubt. I mean, there was a fatality involved, serious injuries, and all we had was 16. So basically our attorney called and said, hey, we're ready to write a check. Let's get this thing done. And the attorney said, absolutely not. I take every trial to claim, every claim to trial. And he said, well, why? He said, oh, we've got 16. And the plaintiff attorney's response is, I can get more in front of a jury. It ultimately wound up settling for 16 million, but I think it was more of, we're going to take it and try to make a precedence and see if we can get 20, I'm making up a number, and see if we can get more, and maybe we can dig into the owner's pockets on a punitive side of things. But I think it wound up, they negotiated it and wound up paying a little bit, but it ultimately it wound up settling for the policy limits. Next slide. Okay. Put this together because it seems like I even talked to the folks that have been doing this for a long time. And then back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, hey, I bumped into your car, let me pay for your damages. And people were, before the insurance, people were self-insuring themselves. And it's just kind of the way it was. And they always bought insurance. A lot of times it wasn't very expensive, so they would just pay for it. Well, then it kind of evolved to, I'm sorry, I bumped into your car. Let me get you my insurance information. And that was 70s and 80s kind of standard practice. And people were like, okay, just take care of my car. I'm going to be good. Well, I started working claims in 1990, maybe. There's an insurance, here's my insurance information. Let me take care of your car. And now you're injured, and we're talking about a minor accident here. Let me take care of your bodily injury claim. So the insurance companies were writing a check for the damages, and then they're writing a bodily injury claim. Well, then as it evolved, and kind of the plaintiff attorneys got involved with the corporate side of things. Here's my insurance information. I need to get my car taken care of, my bodily injury claim. I've got a loss of use, my rental, loss of wages, and a diminution of value of the claims. And that just seems to really have blown up from 2000 to 2010, middle of the 2000s. Now, we'll bump into somebody at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 8:45, and the police literally haven't left the scene, and they've already called the plaintiff attorney. And right by the end of the day, with a traumatic brain injury, mental anguish, loss of consortium, PTSD, that's the new one too, right? Traumatic brain and PTSD, that's the hot buttons right now. And then, oh, I need back fusion surgery. But the real thing that is really taken off is these long-term injections. And I'm gonna let Luke just a little bit as far as dwell into that. Don't want to go to a rabbit hole with that, but let him talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I won't get too deep into it, but one of these things that the plaintiff lawyers have picked up is what's called a life care plan. They get life care planners, which is basically somebody who will take your plaintiff and say, okay, the plaintiff has gone and gotten chiropractic treatment, PT, conservative treatment, and now they've had 1 to 2 what's called ESIs, epidural steroid injections, or ablations. Basically, without getting too deep into the weeds, it just is more treatment for the back, which you can get between 1 to 4 times a year. What the life care planner does is they say, cool, based on that, you're going to need this every year for the rest of your life. And I calculate you will live X number of years. And so I don't see a life care plan case for less than $1 million. Ever.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Luke. So next slide. So I put together the perfect world scenario, and I actually had one of these happen Monday morning. I mean, it was a little minor fender bender where the insured vehicle rear ends the claimant vehicle, minor damage. It's 8 o'clock on there on the way to work. No injuries. I got damage to my bumper. I got no damage to the insured vehicle. The insured driver gets out, courteous to the driver. Hey, I'm sorry, I bumped you at the bank parking lot. Let me exchange insurance information with you. Went ahead and called the police to get a report per our standard company policy. The insured driver gets out, he takes pictures, gets all the documentation, and gets good contact information on the claimant. He or she didn't just sit in the car and wait for the police to get there. We'll go down that rabbit hole in just a second. Okay. The incident report was reported to the police. The employer immediately calls the employer and says, hey, I bumped into Susie. Here's her information. Got minor damages. I've got good pictures. The police write the report. And then the next thing you know, it's the police report will be ready in 24 hours. That's not happening nowadays. It seems like it's really changed. The employer immediately gets all the information. He reports it to the insurance carrier, the broker, or he directly reports it to the agent. It's assigned to an adjuster, and then by the end of the day, the claims adjuster has made contact. We've got them set up to go to the shop. We've got them set up with a rental. They confirm there's no injuries, liabilities clear cut. The claimant takes it to the body shop. They get an estimate, they upload it, and then payments issued later that week, and it's mailed to the claimant. The chances of this happening is probably less than about 5% nowadays, it seems like. A couple things that's going on is like the police, I've been working with Shreveport Police for years. We used to be able to get police reports turned around within 24 to 48 hours. Now for some, they computerized it, which was supposed to make it more efficient, and now it's taking 7 to 10 days. So it doesn't make any sense. Claims adjusters, what we're seeing from the claims adjuster side, there was a big turnover in claims adjusters as far as knowledgeable claims adjusters leaving the industry during COVID. So you've got a lot of inexperience on the claims side. They're trying to get 14 days to 6 months in Houston. Yep, if you go to if it's the Louisiana State Police, it'll take 4 months to get a Louisiana State Police report, depending on how fast they process it. But getting back to what I was saying, we've just noticed that there's a lot of inexperienced claims adjusters, and I was one for 15 years. Claims adjusters are overworked, underpaid, and overwhelmed, and they might have 200 files sitting on their desk, and they just can't flip them as fast as they used to. Next slide, please. So a real life auto accident. I mean, this is a true, insured driver rear ends claimant, less than $1,500 worth of damage. The police is called. They maybe exchange information. We talk to our clients about and try to teach their guys what to say, how to say it, when to say it, that kind of stuff, and wait for the report to be ready. Well, the problem is the business might wait 3 or 4 days. They'll get whatever information they have, and they might take 1 or 2 pictures. And then they'll wait 3 or 4 days to report, and then they call the agency or the company. The claims adjuster gets it. They sit on it for 48 hours before they make a call, and chances are the claimant becomes frustrated because there's a big misnomer out there in the general public that they think that they were involved in an accident. that the police are going to call the insurance company and report the claim for you. It doesn't. That doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way. In the 20-something years that I've been working in the insurance world, that's always been this big misnomer that's sitting out there that, oh, the police should have reported it. No, you need to teach your folks. They have to let you know. The faster they let you know, the better it's going to be. Next slide. So know that the claim clock is ticking. The first insurance company that I worked for was Progressive. I worked for them for about 5.5 years. Progressive was it was a big deal for them, and I will give them credit. They figured it out. The faster you get it reported, the faster you look at it, and the faster you start cutting checks, the more likely that claim is going to settle faster and for less expense as it would if you just sit on it and twiddle your thumbs. And also, they're less likely to seek legal advice. Changed a little bit because people are so geared and marketed that they have to go get an attorney if they have an automobile accident. We saw that in the previous slides with the amount of marketing that's out there. But there's still, if you have the opportunity to get a vehicle looked at, get their injuries taken care of, get their rental taken care of, statistically, it's going to change. It's going to close a lot faster. Next slide. Okay, we're going to circle back to the picture. This was the Colt claim. I know Colt personally. He's a good guy. He's a mechanical contractor that I work with. He is sitting at a red light, excuse me. He's sitting in a red light in a minor small little town over here, about 30 miles east of here. And he bumps into the car in front of him. Well, he thinks his employer is going to be mad at him, so he doesn't report the claim. And he tells the guy, hey man, I'm going to take care of this for you. Don't worry about it. I got this covered. So he gets a little bit of information from the gentleman because he's going to pay for it out of his pocket, he said. He takes two. These are the two pictures he took. We've got the front of his car and the back of his car. The police report takes about 2.5 weeks. What was pretty interesting was there was a police officer that was sitting across from the accident, actually saw the accident happen. He didn't even want to write a report up on it, but the claimant insisted on it. And actually, our guy insisted on it because that's company policy. It took about 2 or 3 weeks to get our report. The claimant waited, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. Went and got an estimate. Well, the estimate was for $7,500. Well, this guy's an AC technician. He just doesn't have $8,000 just kind of laying around in his pocket. And so he goes back and he kind of had his head down and talked to the business owner and said, hey, I bumped into somebody and there was no damage. Well, y'all can see very clearly right there that there's actual damage to this vehicle, and it did damage to the bumper, the rebar, the absorber, and actually did some damage to the rear body panel. So there's a lot of hidden damage on this thing. And so we sat down and it took about 10 to 12 days before we actually knew about the claim after everything was said and done. Well, the claimant calls our office screaming at the top of his lung that he needs a rental and he's mad at the delay. Well, ultimately, this thing, we got a demand in for it. They're asking for almost $380,000 for this. So this is a real life, wheels falling off. The employee was trained on what to do. He knew what to do and went over the scenarios a gazillion times within our training. He was scared because he thought he was going to get in trouble with his employer. One of the things when I talk to my guys, what's done is done. If you bump into somebody, I need to know about it because yes, bleeding is happening, but it needs to stop the bleeding faster rather than later. This thing probably could have been mitigated a lot faster, but because he sat on it, it's gotten out of control, and we have no control of the claim. We literally are reacting to everything now versus being proactive. Or do you see a lot of these? You tell me your experience as far as when you get situations like this?
So I've seen it both ways, and I've actually seen it both ways this week. I have one client, it's a large commercial carrier, incredibly proactive. All of their employees know if there is any accident at all, you let them know immediately. They let the insurance company know immediately. They let me know immediately. And then we've got a field investigator. And then I'm on it, I'm running it, which by the way, you want that. You want an attorney involved because there's a strong argument that a lot of the stuff that gets discussed then is protected and doesn't come out in discovery. But I understand not everybody can do that. But the thing is, when an employee hides a wreck and a lawsuit is filed, here's the conversation that I then have with the adjuster who gives me the file. I say, okay, we've got the petition. What else you got for me? What do we know about this? And the adjuster says, I've got nothing. What do you mean you have nothing? I just found out about this claim today. Okay, what do you want me to do about this? I don't know. And then we have to go through discovery. There's no chance of an early resolution if I don't have all the facts on the front end.
Okay. Next slide, please. So here's some strategies we came up with. If you're not having a conversation, when you have those toolbox talks or you have those drivers meeting, and you're not actively going over with your drivers what to do when they have an accident, you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay. And it doesn't have, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. I just need some basic pictures, some basic information. And inevitably, whenever I get pictures from these guys or folks that are driving, I will get 200 pictures literally of a headlight. I don't care about the headlight. The headlight's $400. It is what it is. I need you to take a picture of the front of the car. I need you to take a picture of the side of the car. I need to take a picture of the corner of the car. Take a picture of all four corners, because A, it helps me understand what kind of car it is, what the license plate is. If you can get a picture of the VIN, that's great. But it gives me the whole picture. Take a picture of the intersection. Take a picture of the parking lot. But inevitably, I'll get 10 or 15 pictures of the damage. Great. The damages are what they are. I really don't care on the grand scale of things. They're either going to be $1,500 or $5,000. But back up and give me a bunch of pictures. Everybody has one of these in their pocket. It costs you nothing to take a picture. Years ago, we used to provide our clients with the little disposable Kodak cameras, and everybody would keep them in their doggone glove box. We don't do that anymore. Everybody's got a camera. It doesn't cost a single dime to take a picture. Documentation is key, because the plaintiff attorneys are going to ask for everything. Get those drivers to write down what happened, not a 1 sentence or 2 sentence. I bumped into Susie in the parking lot. I need a detail. What were you doing? Where were you headed? Which direction you were going? You want to lock those drivers in a really good story, because one of the things, and I tell my folks, guys, if you're at fault, and Luke loves this, we've talked about it. If you're at fault, I need to know about it, because that way I can defend you from the moment that it happens, versus sitting there in a deposition, and it's happened, where the driver all of a sudden changes his story in the middle of a doggone deposition, and we're like, holy Christ, our whole defense just went out the window. And so it's real sensitive when something like that happens. Folks, if y'all are running a fleet, be organized. Have 1 or 2 people in your office that's responsible for gathering data. These plaintiff attorneys are asking for everything. If you're running, I'm making up a number, if you're running 25 trucks and you've got 25 units, every one of those vehicles should have a file. You know, unit 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time y'all do something in that truck, whether it's an oil change or, you know, AC service or whatever it may be, keep that in a file, and that makes it so much easier. That way, when that driver is involved in an accident with that vehicle, you go to that file, you grab it, and you say, I have everything that I need right here. Digital storage is easiest. Yes, paper files are great. I'm old school. I like paper files, but I'm more and more, I'm going to digital. Every time I have a file, I'm sitting there and I'm digitizing it, so that all I gotta do is point and click, so that when I need to send it over to his office, everything's there. I'm not spending 2 hours scanning it. It involved an accident. Secure as much data as soon as possible. We had a fatality that took place, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago. And I told the business owner, whatever you have on that driver, on that vehicle, on any mechanical record, on any training you have on that guy, you need to just grab that information and stick it in your safe, because ultimately it's going to be being asked for depending on your statute of limitations. Louisiana is 1, Texas is 2, Arkansas is 2 or 3.
I think it's
I think it's 2. Most are 2. Next slide. Okay, so you're served with a lawsuit. Now what? Okay. I'm speaking in Louisiana. In Louisiana, we're served, whether you're served directly by the sheriff or it's long arms served to a, what do they call that when they hand it to a representative?
Agent for service process.
Agent for service. Okay. Make sure to get that lawsuit to either your broker or the insurance company ASAP. You have 14 days in Louisiana?
No, they just increased it.
Okay, so how many days is it?
21.
It's 21 days to respond. If you don't respond, you automatically, whatever they're asking for, basically you get. I mean, that's kind of the way it works. So we have to make a response to the plaintiff counsel. Gather up all your records, secure them, and then work with the claims adjuster. One of the key things that my firm has been working with is like the insurance companies, big insurance companies might be out of Dallas or New York or Pennsylvania or whatever, is they automatically assume that attorneys south of I-10 down in New Orleans and Baton Rouge are smarter than people up in North Louisiana. And Luke and I, you know, but if you take an attorney out of New Orleans and bring him into Caddo Parish in North Louisiana, he's going to get massacred because he's not from here. Okay. We had one other day and talking to my friends in Houston, it was a big lawsuit out of Houston. They assigned Dallas counsel and we're like, no, we want to make sure that we have local counsel. Guys, if y'all need to work with your claims adjuster to figure out who your counsel is, because it does make a difference in the way the world works. Defense counsel, plaintiff counsel, they duck hunt together, they fish together, their wives are in Rotary Club together. It all plays in. So if you take a guy out of New Orleans, and plus, we really got frustrated with one insurance company because they kept hiring this one firm out of New Orleans. Great firm out of New Orleans. He was charging us 6 hours to drive up here from New Orleans at $300 an hour or whatever it was, just to take depositions. And finally, I called the adjuster and I'm like, I literally can walk across the street and have lunch with Luke and he doesn't charge me anything to walk across the street. But we're spending thousands of dollars on these attorneys coming from different parts of the state, that when we've got perfectly capable attorneys that know the judges, that know the plaintiff attorneys, they know their playbook, and it works a lot better. Fair statement?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. You could not pay me to take a trial in New Orleans. I don't know who those people are. Whereas up here, I know everybody. I'm in different associations with them. We have lunch sometimes. And it's not just Louisiana, as you said. I mean, Houston and Dallas. I mean, I wouldn't send a Dallas attorney to Houston. I wouldn't send a Houston attorney to Dallas. Look, if you made it through law school and you're at a good firm, I understand you want the big city. I understand a lot of clients want the big name. That's great. You're still going to get popped. And it's not going to be worth it. It's like, okay, cool. I hired XYZ top 10 firm in the country, and then I paid $20 million. It's not worth it. I understand it sounds like I'm being very biased, but I see it from the ground. That reminds me, that $49 million case, out of town counsel, got absolutely smoked. A great top tier law firm does you no good. It's just not worth it. Definitely hire local counsel anytime you can, anywhere you can.
Okay. So I previously talked about, I've got sitting on my desk 43 pages of discovery from a big one that I'm working on right now. So these are some of the things, and this is almost carbon copied. If I get a lawsuit, this is pretty much what they're going to ask for. What's your due diligence in hiring and driving? I do a lot of oil field work. And they go, well, man, he's a good guy, man. He's my brother's uncle, and I've known him all my life. And great, is he a good driver? What does his MVR look like? Okay, have you run due diligence before you hired this guy and handed him the keys to a $250,000 truck with a whole bunch of insurance? Did you find out? Did you investigate this guy? Okay, what was your onboarding process? Did you do a road test? Did you actually follow the guy around or put a mentor in the truck with him to see if he knew what he did? He might have been driving for 5 years, might have been driving for 5 days. What fun runs off always gotten in dealing with construction and oil field guys is do these younger folks that are coming up, do they know how to back up a trailer? I mean, it's crazy that some of these folks, they're going to work on these construction companies and they don't know how to back up a trailer. What are your trainer qualifications? That was a hot button on a couple that we've seen is they went down a rabbit hole as far as you have a person that is training our drivers. What is his or her qualifications for training them? And they wanted everything, and they wanted to know everything about that person, their experience, and you went on down the road. Drug and alcohol testing, making sure you're abiding by your policies. Guys, if you've got a drug and alcohol testing policy and it says that after every accident we're going to drug and alcohol test, you better doggone do it, because you know what? The one time you don't is the one time you're going to get burned on. Daily, weekly vehicle inspection forms. I cannot stress this enough, whether it's DOT, I know they've got pre and post with DOT. The non-DOT is where we seem to get hammered, because that plaintiff attorney says, hey, when's the last time you did an inspection on that vehicle? And a lot of times I'll get a deer in the headlight look from the business owner. And it's like, what do you've never inspected it? There was a big case here in Shreveport where it was a church van that they were taking a road trip to Dallas with a youth trip. And there was, I don't know, 10 or 15 kids in there. And ultimately one of the back tires wound up blowing out, and one or two kids were seriously hurt. I think there was one fatality in it. The second question from the plaintiff attorney representing the child that had been killed was, let me see your inspection form on that bus. And there literally was a deer in the headlight look. And that went from a manageable claim to a very expensive claim very, very quickly. Driver training, MVRs, and then previous infractions. One of the things we started pushing to our clients was, Mark, help me on this, is it the PSP through the DOT? Is that right?
Yeah, pre-employment screen.
And what we did was, it's an investment. I don't know how much it is, but it's like, this tells you the inspections that have taken place for John Smith or Jane Smith, these drivers. And if you've got a consistent pattern that these folks are getting pulled over and written tickets, you're hiring your next problem. So be very cautious of that. And if you're getting a bad vibe that, hey, this isn't adding up as far as the number of inspections and the out of service, and they're not doing their due diligence as that driver of taking care of their vehicles. And it's really worked positive. The guys that we've recommended that to, you kind of watch that number go down slightly because they quit hiring their problems. Next slide. More information asked for in discovery. Vehicle, we've been over that. Vehicle maintenance records. I mean, anything they can think of, okay? Cell phone records. Now, here's the thing. They're asking for cell phone records. Everybody's got distracted driving. Everybody got a cell phone policy out there. But they also are pulling their personal as well as their business phones. They had a case here in Shreveport where there was a car salesman. It was on a Sunday. The dealership was not even open. Because the car salesman gives out their phone number to work through the process, the client called the car salesman. He's driving down Burt Coons on his personal phone on his day off and had an accident. The plaintiff attorney subpoenaed the records, got the cell phone records, saw that he was on the phone discussing a business transaction. So therefore, guess what? It looped the company in. So it went from his $50,000 personal limits to all of a sudden we're sitting out there with $1 million. So it became very interesting to know that, hey, well, man, I was on my personal phone. They still can subpoena those records. They'll ask for toll receipts, empty receipts. This is all DOT stuff. GPS tracking, camera video, dispatcher files. I mean, we went down one where the dispatcher, they wanted to know everything that person had been dispatched for that week as well as that month. That's a lot of data that we had to gather. Police reports on any previous accidents in regards to the accidents involved, but it's also any other previous accidents for the company for the last 5 to 10 years. So we had to go back and track down basically every file that we had been in an accident with this particular company. Photos of the vehicle, written statements. I mean, anything and everything as far as investigation to it. So big data's out there. Know that the better you use technology, we'll get into technology in a second, the better you use technology and store that technology, the better that you're going to be as far as setting yourself up. Luke, is there anything you want to add on any of this?
I think we're running a little long, so I'll just say briefly, all of your drivers need to know that if you get their cell phone records, it's not just who's calling who's texting who. you can find out if they're streaming, because there's a difference in dating. And woe unto you if your employee is streaming the game while driving and has an accident, because that will come out, and then you're in a whole world of trouble.
Okay. So next slide. So ideas to consider that we put together this. A good defense is a great offense. You know, be a defensible client. Mark and I had a conversation about that. We need you to be defensible. And being compliant, well, I'm DOT compliant or I am OSHA compliant. Man, that's just scratching the surface. You have to go back to the, are you good or are you lucky? You have to be good. Invest in technology. Now, going with the invest in technology, cameras, GPS, training platforms such as great one we've got here with these guys on board right here. It's great. Love it. I'm a big proponent of it. Doing background checks. Something that the underwriters there are certain insurance companies now the underwriters are moving to, and pretty much if you don't have cameras in your vehicles now, it's going to be real hard to be getting insurance over the next couple of years. Within the next, I'm saying the next 5 years, and maybe even faster than that. If there's not cameras sitting out there, and depending on what kind of camera as well, what platform are you running? Are you running a cheap one from Target, or are you running a really good one from XYZ company? It does make a difference. And then monitor your employees. Now, you got all this technology, you got cameras, you got GPS, you got all this stuff. If you're not monitoring that information, the plaintiff attorneys will absolutely hammer you on this. Oh, you knew that he had sped the last 20 times he got in the car. Oh, you knew that he had made hard braking. And you're not pulling your employee in and go, and I'm not saying use it as a disciplinary thing, use it as a learning opportunity. Hey, we've noticed over the last couple of days that you're all of a sudden hard braking. Is there something we need to know about as far as the route that you're taking you on? Is there, you're speeding through this school zone. You know, school's back door. Use it as a coaching and a mentoring process. Next slide. Okay, have good record retort and extension. Talked about that. One of the things I've implemented with several of my clients, folks, if you don't have a first movement forward procedure and you drive, this is a lot of times a lot of service trucks. I'll do a lot of mechanical contractors and contractors. And you're the first movement forward. When you get in that truck, and like I've got a lot of mechanical contractors that have the toolboxes on the side, it's really hard to see out of those things. And they're always hitting non-moving vehicles or a pole or a tree or whatever. It seems like make it to where your first movement is forward. I've implemented that with several of my oil field clients, and they're literally their boo-boo accidents where they were bumping into something that wasn't moving went down by like 80%. Make sure that's a great process to put in. When they pull up to a store, park out, back into the parking spot, park away, and that helps you keep them from hitting something. Train your employees what to do, what to say, and how to say it when they get in an accident. And one of the examples I give, they bump into somebody at a red light, they walk up to it, I am so sorry that I've hit you. If I say that, what have I just admitted?
A little bit of fault.
Yes, just a little bit. You've admitted fault.
I can work with it, but
Okay.
It's not great.
So, but if you say, I'm sorry, we met this way, are you injured? Can I call somebody for you? You've said exactly the same thing. You've shown compassion, but you've not admitted liability. Okay. Train your employees to take pictures. We talked about that as far as a lot of pictures. And then on the bottom there, consider if you have policies and procedures, make sure to stick to them. Make sure somebody's not deviating from your policies and procedures. That's a huge hammer on the lawsuit side of things, correct?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And if I'm just going to pick out a few things from the list that Jeff has put together, my dream list here is dash cams. That helps me know whether or not that helps me defend the actual driver. Training is huge. That has become a big thing in our jurisdiction. I know in others. If you have records of training, we're great. Because here's the thing, juries sometimes will be sympathetic to a driver. You know, just a good old boy, didn't mean no harm, it happens. They are not sympathetic to a company. They will pop a company, especially if there is no record of training. Like I've got a few insured trucking companies where they hire you sight unseen and you just go. They're getting popped every time. So those are the things that I really would like to see.
Okay. Steve, how are we on time? I got about 10 minutes left. Are we good? Okay. All right. Real quick. Next slide. Okay, your broker expectations, if you're dealing with a broker, on average, you're spending about, making up a number, if you're spending $100,000 on your insurance, you're paying 10% of that premium to your agent to help you with that. Does your broker know all the programs and safety? Is he going to the underwriter and saying, here's what makes company A better than company B? We talked about underwriters being overworked. If he's got 50 files sitting on his or her desk, what makes that file go up to the top? Okay, meaning that instead of having being number 49 out of 50, what makes it go up to the top? Does that broker know all the program and safety technology that you have in place? Specific types of technology. Are they presenting this information to get better premiums? Because if those underwriters know that you're doing the right things, you got the technology, you're doing all that stuff, it's going to make them look better in their eyes. And are you working closely with your underwriter and your claims representative? That broker should be fighting for you. If you're spending $100,000 on premiums and 10,000 of that going to your broker, when you call him when the ship hits the sand, is he just flipping you to the insurance company and saying, handle it? Okay, or is he actually helping you manage the claim, get through the claim, work through the claim, working with counsel and doing all the things you're paying to do? I call it the home generator theory. Right now, home generators are big because we've got all the hurricanes and stuff. I guarantee that if I walked in some of these business owners and they had just bought a $20,000 home generator, that they know more about their home generator and what it can do for their house and all that kind of fun stuff versus what their insurance policy can cover or how their broker can help them with that process of having a claims. Next slide. Okay, strengthen your relationship. Does that broker you're paying that 10%, does he have a claims department in-house? We've got a claims department with an in-house attorney. Also got a DOT guy that's sitting there, and I've got 2 claims folks that we help these clients manage these claims. Are they ensuring? We hit long time that are getting local counsel. Allison in my office, who's our in-house counsel, she hammers those claims adjusters going, we want somebody local. And she's mean about it. She's good about it. Are you doing active claims reviews? If you have a couple of uh-ohs, do you know what's going on with your claims? If you just turn it over to the insurance company and think they have your best interest in place, they don't. Okay, they want to settle it, but they might have to spend another $25,000 to make it go away. But if you have a claims manager at your broker level to go, look, we think we have a good case that we can work with Luke and the defense counsel, we can get it settled for $10,000 versus $35,000. That's in that claims review, monthly, quarterly. Sometimes we even have claims reviews weekly on these big nasty claims that we know what's going on. Finally, I'm going to touch on this real quick. Is a group captive insurance program fit for your company? That is a total another webinar, but there's a lot of information out there, and our company is really good with it. We've got about 30 to 40 clients that are in group captive insurance companies. It's a way that customers can save on their insurance rates. It doesn't work for everybody because there are certain things, and Mark and I had a long, extensive conversation about this. There are certain programs that are out there that are helping. The good thing about a captive, are helping them kind of flatten their insurance costs, and it's a great deal if you can meet some of the requirements of that program. Final slide. So on those questions we went through, if you've answered no to any one of those questions, you might have the wrong broker. I mean, we're good at what we do. I'm sitting here telling you that we can help you with your process. My name and number, Luke's name and number will be on the back of this thing. We're happy to help you. If you have questions about any of this stuff at a much deeper level, we're happy to visit with you. We've got guys that can, producers that can talk to you and walk you down some of the path. I do more on the loss control and safety side of things, and I'm happy to talk to you about those. Any questions, Mark or Steve?
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Jeff and Luke. Some fantastic information. A couple of questions did come in. You answered one of them. We had a question about captive insurance, but do you ever recommend training or even simulating a crash as part of training, or making sure that people are prepared and can get the information necessary when these lawsuits do come in? Do you ever recommend that?
I'll go out to clients' offices, and actually we set up an accident one time. It was just a minor, we backed 2 trucks up to one another and said, guys, this is what I need, okay? One of the presentations that I do, it's about accident investigations. We literally have a little dummy car, a little model car, and I say, I need a picture from here. Like if this is the car, I need pictures on all four corners. I need pictures all the way around it. I need pictures of the street sign. I need pictures of the stoplights. I need a video of, one of the big things that we were having trouble with years ago down in South Louisiana is there was a sting that took place down in New Orleans where it was a setup, and it was run by organized crime, where they would have a predetermined route. They knew that bus was going on, and there'd be, 10 people on the bus. We have a minor accident full of folks, and then they'd stop at the predetermined location. The bus driver would get off to go talk to the person that bumped them, and about 15 or 20 people would get on. And all of a sudden you went from having 10 people on the bus to having 40 people on the bus, and everybody's injured. So taking pictures, if you can, of how many people were in the vehicle, you gotta do it tactfully. And get there, officer, there was only 2 people in this car, and all of a sudden this carload of people showed up, and now there's 5 people in the car. That's just blatant fraud. It happens every day, unfortunately. Hopefully that addressed that question.
No, that's great. Thank you for that. One last thing that I'll point out here. You mentioned several times that it's important to provide training for your clients. Do you recommend online training?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The challenge 90% of my clients have is getting those drivers out of the field into a predetermined location because it's downtime.
Yeah.
The program that you offer through Infinity is awesome. So we do a lot of drivers, and if they're sitting waiting to load, and you've got 5 assignments that you've got for these guys for the month, they literally can go on their phone and you press a button and they watch the 3, 5, 7-minute video. It gives them good training. It gives them stuff that's recorded. So when you do have the accident, you can go pull the records for John Smith and hand them directly over to Luke to go, hey, he went and took this on speeding on this day at this time. It works great. I've got several customers that are on y'all's program, and they absolutely love it.
Great. Thank you for that. I think we've pretty much come to the end of our time here, guys. Thank you so much, Jeff and Luke. Fantastic information. Mark, do you have any final comments?
No, I know that if you are not a client, that we could certainly get you set up with a demonstration, free demonstration immediately. There's a poll question right there. You can literally get some content going out to your drivers this afternoon. The other thing is Jeff made some spectacular observations about what to do at the scene, immediate actions that can turn a nothing into a multi-million-dollar. That's a trainable event, and custom content can be developed to get to your drivers so they know what to do. They might not always do exactly what they're trained to do, but at least you have informed them of what needs to happen at the scene of an accident. So that's a great custom content opportunity. Thank you guys. Thank you guys a lot. We know where to go in the event we have something in northern Louisiana. So we appreciate that very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We enjoyed it.
Jeff, Luke, thank you all both. Thanks for everybody joined us this morning. I think it was a great conversation, a lot of really good information. Maybe we'll have you guys on again sometime in the future, Jeff, if that works out for you.
I'd love to do it. Thank
you all for coming, and look for us on the next webinar program. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you all.
All right. Bye-bye.